Okay, so this is going to be the first video of designing an RC model in Fusion 360. I previously released that video on building a little balsa sheet glider. And I chose this subject in particular because it does have simple lines and should be fairly easy to replicate in Fusion and, possibly build a model with it. I imported the canvases already, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube to show how to do that in the Fusion. But if you're unable to find that, let me know, and I'll make a short video on importing canvases. So to get started, I'm going to draw a sketch on this right panel, which is going to give me the side profile of the fuselage. I like designing from the fuselage and going out from there the same way I build models. I start with the fuselage because everything is attached to it. It's kind of the main part of the whole airplane. One of the things we can design this as a tab and slot construction, which I'm going to draw this with that intent, because that's how I like to build things. When I go through the process of drawing something, I might as well make it as easy as possible to build, right? So if you notice on this particular model, the top of the fuselage is straight all the way across, and then this decking and the hatches and all that cross sheeting is on top. So what I'm going to do to make a tab and slot construction, you kind of have to have material above that that will lock into that top deck. So I'm going to start my line above where the normal fuselage line is. And I'm going to start a sketch right here on this side. And one of the things about the canvas, I like to have the origin lined up with the center of gravity. It just is a good point of reference on any airplane. So I'm going to start by drawing a line all the way across. Now when you draw lines, if you tab over to the angle, I can lock that 0 in just by hitting 0 and tab, and now you notice there's a little gold lock on that, so it doesn't matter how far out I go, it's gonna always keep that angle throughout the whole model. And I'm gonna go ahead and this mouse is really funny. It's not my favorite mouse. There are some really good mouses out there. Do you call them mice or do you call them mouses? I don't know. But there's some really good ones out there for CAD work. I think it's 3D Connection is the name of the company. And eventually I'm going to get one of those. Now this canvas could probably be rotated just a little bit if you notice how the line dropped down from where it was initially, but I'm not stressing about that. I don't think I am anyway. Maybe I can adjust the canvas. Let me try that really quick. I have to finish. Let me get out of this sketch here, and then I can edit this canvas. And I mean, it has to be just an nth of a degree in rotation to rotate this. I'm going to click on there, and then I should get a little dialog box. There it is. 0.1 degrees. I was hoping this was already done before I started the video, but I didn't get that lucky. I think I'm going to have to go negative. There we go. That looks pretty good right there. All right, now that canvas is looking perfect right there. All right, so let's go back into our sketch. I'm going to right click and hit edit sketch. And click the line tool. You can hit L on the keyboard, or you can click right up there on the toolbar. And let's kind of go right here to where this wing starts. And one of the things I don't do is I'm not going to cut the shape on the wing saddle. I'll cut that out with the wing itself, and that's going to give you a really nice fit. I'm going to go right here to where this this curve is starting. Let me zero this in 180 degrees. If you notice off there to the right, you'll see the right here, that's where I can put the degrees in. And why is it moving? Oh, now it wants to be 90 degrees. Okay. Oh, I made a mistake there. Let me move this line up. And to get out of the line tool, you can hit that little check mark, or you can hit, oh, what happened here? That is not what we want. Okay. Let's do that there. We don't want this little line here. It's always good to demonstrate mistakes, right? Because I do make them. I have to go back and clean my stuff up all the time. All right. Again, not going to cut out the wing saddle. And this mouse, as I stated, is not my favorite. And I'll come back and put a constraint on this line. So you see how it's snapping to the grid? If you don't want it to snap to the grid, just hold the control key and it should smooth it out. Now, right here, there's that little check mark. If you want to get out of whatever tool you're using, you can hit that check mark there. So now we've come up to the spline part. Let me go do this. And I'm going to make sure this is 90 degrees, so it's going to be perfectly horizontal and come about there where the spline starts. Alrighty. For splines, I like to use the control point spline, and I have it up here in my toolbar. You can find that tool down here when you go to create, and you'll see fit point spline, control point spline. And since I use it a lot, I added it to my toolbar. And to add it to the toolbar, just click those three dots and you'll say pin to toolbar. Or you can pin it to your shortcuts as well. All right. So let's get that and create this spline. Now this spline tool is a little bit different than the fit point. The fit point, you're going to use it and actually follow right on top of the spline that you're trying to draw. But the control point, you're going to have these control points out a little further from where your line is. But it's much easier to define, I've found, and it's easier to get a nice smooth curve to your spline, and that's extremely important to having any kind of success in Fusion, you know, especially when it comes to drawing these airplanes that have lots of splines. They're not, you know, set radius or diameter circles. And that's going to get pretty close. I like to try to help with more constraints. As many constraints as you can get on a model, it's going to help. I'm going to see if I can get this thing to be tangent to this line, and it looks like that worked out. So now I'm going to get a much smoother transition. I don't think it's going to work here. Actually, it did. I just got a little bit of editing, and I think I'm going to be good. Well, that didn't work. So one thing we can do to keep this point from moving is actually define the difference between these. So I went up to the dimension tool and grabbed that. And actually, I don't want that to be an angle between the two. I want these to be perfectly horizontal. and this one to be perfectly horizontal, which it looks like they are. Now let's see if I can define this distance. Yeah, and I'm not even going to put a number in. If you wanted to get that specific, you could. Now I want to make sure my origin, I'm also going to put a dimension between this bottom line and the origin. And if you notice, these lines turn black. So now they're going to be stationary, and they shouldn't move when I go here to try to edit the spline. And I don't know, by doing that, now my spline looks really amazing. Don't ask me how. All right, let's get this dimension tool again. You can click up here for dimension, or you could hit D on the keyboard and get it. Let's define this distance. That's that, and that should be 90 degrees, which it is. And so here it gives me a little dialog box. Says adding this dimension will over-constrain the sketch. You can create this or not, but Fusion's letting you know that this dimension is not going to change anything. So I'm just going to not put that there. But what I will do is define the distance from where the front of this plane is to the origin point. So now it turned black, and that's what we want. Now to define this spline, we were going to have to put in the angles between each part. And if you look here, this little dashed line actually turned black, and that means that this point should be defined, this section of the spline. And I'm going to go ahead and do that again on this next angle between these 2 points. And although it didn't turn black, it's getting us to the right direction. So one thing we could do is actually define the distance between these 2 points and the distance between these 2 points. And that should help further define our spline. So now this is turned black, and we only have, and this is black. So we only have this section to define, and it might be an angle. Nope, that looks good. I didn't want that. Let's do that. So now all this is black, and that's what we want. And my computer's going to lag because that's what it does. Let me go ahead and hit these angles. Nope, it doesn't need those angles. So what it needs is another define to help us find these points. Okay. It's going to argue with me a little bit, but that's okay. All right. Probably need to define this point to this point, and that should, there we go. So now this is all turned black. And one of the things I recommend if you're going to have any kind of success with using Fusion to design model airplanes or anything is you really need fully defined sketches. Weird things will start happening later on in the development of your model if you don't do that. And trust me, I thought I could get by with it, and you can't. So I'm going to define the length of this as well. Now it probably wants me to define these angles. And let's see, let's get this one down here. And that knows where that is, so it doesn't want that. It also knows where that is, so it doesn't want that. So we have to figure out what it is asking for. And I'm just going to see if it's a distance thing to this. Nope. Sometimes when it's not defining, you can grab your select tool, and there it is, and figure out which way it wants to move. And in this instance, it's not, this top line is not defined in its length. So we need to define this line here just by doing this. And there we have it. It is now all black. You can turn the canvas off and see that we have a fully defined sketch. So we're going to finish that sketch. Now, And again, I made this mistake before, but it's easy to fix. I should have made a component before I started the sketch, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is create a new component off of here somewhere. Well, we'll create the new component once we draw this top profile. And I'm going to name this side profile. You want to name pretty much everything you do in Fusion. It just makes life so much easier to find. So let's go ahead and create this top profile. And I'm going to select the canvas that I placed for the top. And now we're going to create sketch. And that's not where I wanted my sketch. I'm going to undo there. I must have had something selected. Let's create sketch, and we want to create it on this top plane right here. There we go. And I always like the things to have the length across the screen versus going up and down. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing basically here, except I'm going to put a center line along here, because when you're doing something symmetrical like this, you really only need to draw one side of it. So I'm going to click OK, and I want to change that to a construction line because I don't want it to drive any extrusions or anything later on. So we hit X. You can also click here on line type, and that'll do that. Now let's go back to the line tool, and we're going to start up here on the front. That looks like as good a place as any to start. And this is kind of straight for a little bit, and then it starts to have a slight curve. Again, I'm going to hit Control to help keep my cursor from snapping to the grid. And let's get our control point spline. And this is really shallow spline here. And let's bring it to about here. And then it looks like the fuselage gets straight for a little bit again over where the wing saddle is. And we'll fix that there for now because we're going to come back and hopefully make this lines tangent with each other. And it looks like it starts to curve off over here. I'm going to hit my tab key, go down to where I can set the angle of this line. I'm going to lock it in at 90 and put it somewhere in here. I think if you put it a little further back from where the line turns straight, it's going to be easier to make these splines tangent with the straight lines. Okay. All right, now let's draw this spline. And just kind of follow this. And this fuselage actually turns straight back here toward the end. So I'm going to stop my spline right there and then grab the line tool and come on and finish this side of the profile. And we're going to go all the way back to the back here. And hit my control key so I get it right where I want it. Okay. And let's go ahead and make this go on up to our center line that we drew. And there that is. And let's go back here and make adjustments to the spline so we can get it where we like it. Come on down here. Move that in a little bit. Move this one in. Oops. think that's following our path pretty good. Yes, it is. All right, let's put some constraints. I'm going to make that back line in this spline tangent. I want to make the spline in this line tangent, and you can see it's moving a little bit, but we're going to go back and fix that. And let's get these lines tangent. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now let's go and this one looks like it's following pretty good. It is. That looks great. Let's go over here. And again, I don't know if I told you, but I don't like this mouse. For one thing, my thumb is not that great at moving this trackball. Okay. I want the sketch point. Yeah, when you see that little dialog come up when I'm left clicking, that's pretty handy Fusion function that, especially when you have a lot of parts layered on top of each other, you can hold the left mouse button down and it will give you a selection of things in that area, so you can grab the part or element that you want. All right, that looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror this, and I'm going to go up here to mirror, and I'm going to click on mirror, and I want to select all the elements that I want to mirror, and it's all of these lines and splines. Go right there. We want more than just the point. Now it's asking for a mirror line, and I'm going to select that, and I'm going to select that that line that we drew earlier, and we should now have a closed sketch. Blue is good. Now let's define this sketch. I'm going to turn that off. I don't need that now. And let's we're going to get the dimension tool, and I actually want to dimension that center line so it's defined as well. Okay, so let's just start putting in some constraints, and I want to make sure that this is horizontal, which it says it is. So that's good. And basically we only have to define one side of this because it was mirrored. So what happens on one side happens on the other side. I want to define that distance there, and let's define this angle. Let's define the length of this line, and I should have gotten a black line from that one, but I guess I didn't. Things are funny. I want to make sure that this is, yeah, that is a construction line. That's what we want. Okay, come back here and start defining get out of this. I don't want that. What I want, again, you can hit the D key. Nope, deselect all that. Hit the D key and start putting this stuff in. Well, that's nice. That turned black. This should have turned black too. Oh, bam. That was all of that. Okay. Let's, here we go. Like this one is black, so let's define this angle. And we should probably define this length, which did what we wanted it to do. Let's define this length. And let's define this angle between these points. And continue on down. Define this angle. And I'll bet you that it's going to want the distance from here to something that's already defined, and that is, there's that. And we now have a fully defined sketch, it looks like. Yes, there we go. And we can finish this sketch. Now for the fun part, this is when you start to see a 3D shape of your fuselage. I'm going to come up here to Extrude, and we'll click on this. Let me rename this. I don't know what's going on with my neighbors there, in case you heard that. This is the top profile. All right, now we're going to create this. We want to create this symmetric, so it pulls the same off of both sides. And the extent type is distance, which is fine. And all I'm going to do is pull this extrude out past our top top profile. And I want to create from this body a new component, because I want to kind of keep everything separate. So I'm going to say create component from bodies. And if you notice now, this body is down here. And I'm going to rename this fuselage. And then all our parts that are related to the fuselage are going to be there. All right, so now for the really fun part, we're going to hit extrude again. And we want to go 2 sides, it's fine. And we're going to pull this through our profile there, pull that up. And you notice how it cuts a hole. What we actually want, what's in that hole. We don't want the stuff on the outside. So I'm going to go over here to operation, and I'm going to change that to intersect. Now I'm going to click OK, and if you see, there is our basic fuselage side, shape. So now we're going to create the sides of the fuselage, and I think that's going to be it for this video, and then I'll bring in some more stuff in the next video. So here is, we're going to go to the shell command up here. I want to click on all of the sides that I don't want to exist. So, which is all these top and front profiles or parts of this. And let's get this little back piece here. Now, one weird thing I came across in all my experimenting was, for some reason, if I used a fraction right here, it didn't like it. So I started using decimals on everything, and I want this side profiles to be 1/8 inch. I'm going to cut this out of 1/8 inch light ply. So I'm going to hit 0.125, and it's going to cut it out to the inside, and we're going to hit OK, and there you have your fuselage sides. And we can go in here and rename this, so you have body 1, and then you have body 2, and this did the thing that I didn't want it to do. I'm going to edit this. I've had this happen before, and I thought I had it whipped. Let me try the decimal. Okay, so if it doesn't work one way, go from decimal to fraction. Don't ask me why. It's a weird thing. So this is the right side of the fuselage, so I'm just going to call this right side. And this is the left side of the fuselage, and I'm going to call that left side. And there you have it. We've got the beginnings of a fuselage. Alrighty, until next time, I hope you guys, this helps you out. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments, and I'll be glad to answer them. Thank you. Have a great day.